today a contractor will come to you and ask for finance to provide cash flow during the construction phase, and that's a 3 or a 4 or a 5 year loan, and then the operator might have a different funding model. What has to change from what we have today to this model that you are talking about, where you have a special purpose vehicle looking for a 25 year or a 30 year financing?
I think what has to change very clearly is the widening of the market participants in a financing of this sort. So first of all, from the provider of capital perspective, there has to be laws and regulations which needs to be put in place in order to get the people who own the long-term funding to have the ability to put in money out here. Today, I believe that a lot of the state-owned pension funds and the insurance companies out here outsource their fund management to global securities firms who then invest on their behalf, right? If even a certain percentage of that is directed to be put into the local economy, and a framework created, it opens up a different pocket of liquidity altogether. So that is one. The second aspect is, and if you can do that, and the second aspect which I was coming to was, if you can bring that currency twist, which effectively moves from having dollar denominated to local currency project financing. For example, if it's a financing of a road project where effectively, and that's where your PPP comes in, where your toll proceeds are typically the economic payback on that. It doesn't really need to be a dollarized kind of a funding. It can be dirham, right? And it can be the local currency, in other words. And therefore, there can be a lot of participation of these funding from day one, and the banks are comfortable taking and managing that risk during that period. They step in and they said, we guarantee the such a construction and such a project to be completed within a certain period of time, and then the payback is and XYZ. So there is a lot more that can be done on that basis, and not necessarily only leading to infrastructure like the healthcare, the education system, etc. can also be funded, and PPP is a great model. Kuwait obviously had one of the few things that they had a head start on, and they were one of the first ones to come up with laws and regulation. Dubai, UAE, and Dubai in particular typically took to it in 2015, and I'm sure some of the noises being made around financing some of the rail projects on a PPP basis, or rather the metro projects on a PPP basis.
PPP has worked in this region in the electricity sector.
That's right, electricity and water
and that's attractive to, we have international institutions lending or buying bonds in companies that are developers of electricity projects. But the commercial model for those projects is you have a guaranteed revenue stream, and then you also have a sovereign feedstock supplier, so you have a guaranteed materials or input price. When you go outside of the electricity sector, you talked about road tolling, but in hospitals, schools, real estate, the commercial model is more complicated, and we haven't got a track record in this region.
We haven't at all.
So are we close to moving to these longer term financing structures?
I'm honestly, I'm not an authority on that subject, but if at all something were to happen on that front, and I know that the framework has been passed in 2015 for putting up the regulations around that. The first few projects outside the electricity and water, as you rightly said, are being kind of tendered out on a PPP basis. We would want to see how it typically sees a kind of attraction, or it gathers traction in the market. And I do believe that with the kind of diversity of projects that we are coming up with, you may not be very far away from having the first or the second or the third education project being financed. There was one on the education side, which was done in Abu Dhabi in pre-crisis again in 2007. One of the universities was financed, but again, you as you rightly said, there was a offtake from the government, and as it was an availability-based kind of a PPP model. But if we kind of move away from that into the private sector, that would be a great development, and I don't see that we are very far away from that.